Hey guys, it's BigfeetzGaming, and I just wanted to make a little video just going over how to make your audio sound a little better. Removing background noise, adding EQ, a compressor, so that when you're shouting, you're not deafening people if you're streaming or making YouTube videos. And I'll include links in the description to all the software that's being used for the video, but it's relatively simple to do, but I would say the first piece of software we're using does take a little bit to wrap your head around. That being said, let's get into it. So before we do anything with Voicemeeter, we need to go to our sound settings, and we need to make sure that Voicemeeter is being set to our default. So this is fairly easy to do. Just go to your sound control panel, and for playback, you'll want to find Voicemeeter input and set it to your default device. For recording, you're going to want to set Voicemeeter output to your default device. And if your audio does cut off for a moment, don't worry, not an issue, we'll fix it shortly. So with Voicemeeter, there's only a few things that we particularly care about in this instance, at least to start with. Now when you get it fresh, you're either going to be using Voicemeeter Banana or Voicemeeter Potato. Both of them are donationware, so technically you have to pay for them, but you can pay essentially whatever you want. You're going to be seeing, if you're on Banana, I believe it's 3 inputs, or if you're on Potato like me, you'll be seeing 5 separate hardware inputs, and 3 virtual inputs, which are these ones here. The only one you really need to care about at this point, if you're just wanting to run your microphone through it, and that's it, is the first hardware input. Now, in this case, mine's here is called Mic In, but you're going to want to go ahead and click under the name, and you're going to want to set it to your microphone. If there's any effects set here, like if this has been moved, just double click and it'll reset them back to default. And you're going to want to be outputting it on B1. Now, the next thing we need to do is to make sure that our first hardware output, which is A1, is set to something reliable. And in this case, you're going to be wanting using your main audio device, whether it be your headphones or your speakers. In this case, it's my headphones, but the Realtek drivers pick them up as speakers. So you just want to go ahead and select that. If your audio is sounding a little choppy, I would highly recommend trying maybe the MME. There'll be generally a few different options for the same one. Just try a different one, see if it sounds better. So now that you've got your defaults set to use Voicemeeter, and you've got your microphone coming in on the first hardware input, and your hardware output is set to your main audio device, in my case my headphones, which is showing up as speakers, you're going to want to make sure that the microphone is on B1, and for the first virtual input, which you should see move when there's audio, like you can see my microphone one moving, make sure it's set to A1, as this is the hardware output that's set for your headphones. So to get a profile for essentially how we want our microphone to sound, we're going to be using a bit of software called Reaper. And in this case, the first thing we want to do once you've got it installed is go to Options and Preferences. Make sure it's set to Wave Out, and your input and output devices are set to Voicemeeter. Once that's done, we can go back into Reaper and we can start getting it ready. So the first thing you're going to want to do is click Insert New Track. You're going to want to prime it for recording by clicking that little button. As you can see, it's now picking up our microphone. And we're going to just record a little voice clip, something that we're going to be able to play back to ourselves while we're tweaking it. I'll just do that now just to show you. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Show you. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Show you. Now the great thing with this bit of software is we can toggle the repeat option here, which is essentially just going to allow the clip to play over and over and over again. Now next thing you're going to want to do on that track is click the little FX button. And what you're going to want to do is click on rear EQ and select OK. So what we have here is essentially EQ settings for our microphone, and doing this is going to allow us to get it sounding a little prettier, sounding nicer. A lot of this is personal preference. I'm honestly not 100% sure how all of this works. As far as I'm concerned, this is black magic fuckery. But I will show you the settings that I have. I'm just going to go over to another piece of software quickly. Oops. So here you can see my EQ settings, and it's the bit here, it's exactly the same as you would find it in rear EQ. So on 1, I have it set to low shelf, 2 is band, 3 is band, and 4 is high shelf. And essentially all you're going to want to do is just have a little play around with this, have the recording playing at the same time, have it looping to yourself, and as you're playing with this in Reaper, you'll be able to hear the feedback instantly of how it's changed. So just have a little play around with that, get it to a place where you like it. I wouldn't recommend playing about with the frequency, I would leave them where they are, but have a play with the gain. Maybe try doing what I've done, which is low shelf on 1 and high shelf on 4. And just see if you can get it sounding a bit nicer. Once you have got some settings that you're happy with, you're going to want to make sure you're keeping Reaper open for now, because we're going to need to refer back to these settings shortly. So next we're going to want to open up the system settings, which you can get to from menu, system settings in Voicemeeter. And because we're going to be running our microphone through another bit of software, you're going to want to here on the patch inserts at the bottom, click input 1 left and input 1 right. This will allow us to run our microphone first through another bit of software. For the other settings, the only one that I've changed was my buffering MME. I set that to 512 down from 10 to 4. So once you've got the next piece of software installed, which is Mini-Host Module by FL Studios, you're going to want to open it up, and it's going to look a little different to mine, but don't worry about that for now. Click on File, go to Preferences, and you're going to want to make sure that your audio device type is set to ASIO, and the device is Voicemeeter, then the name of the Voicemeeter you're running will either be Potato or Banana. Insert Virtual ASIO, set to 44100 with 512 samples. Next, provided you've installed the VST plugins, a link to which can be found in the description, you're going to want to go to Browse for the custom VST folder, point it to the correct location, and then just click Scan and Verify. You should get a load of things like this showing up, probably more than I have here, but provided they're showing up and showing verified OK, then we're absolutely golden to continue. So now that you've got that done, the first thing we're going to want to do is go in to this program, and we're going to want to add in our EQ. So click Add Plugin, and go to Rear EQ Standalone. And as you can see, it'll make a little box here. So what you're going to want to do is drag from the first audio in to the audio in 1 on the rear EQ, and from audio out 1 to audio out on FL Mini Module. As you can see, it'll look something like this. You'll see your audio going in and your audio going out. It's the exact same as mine is, except I've just got a few little more links in the chain right now. So once you've got that done, you're going to want to pull Reaper up again and get your EQ settings to hand. And in Mini-Host Module, double click on the EQ that you've just created, and you're going to essentially just want to copy it across the settings from Reaper that you'd set up here earlier into the rear EQ standalone in Mini-Host Module. And that's essentially just going to run the EQ settings that you've created in Reaper through your microphone while you're speaking, which is exactly what we're after. So the next thing you're going to want to do is we're going to be adding a plugin, and we're going to be adding Rear Standalone. And you're going to want to be the first module in the chain here. So just once it's created, add a link from audio in to ReFear, and then from ReFear over to your EQ. Make sure those are the only links at the moment. Just ignore the rear gate and the rear comp here that you see on mine. Just pretend they don't exist for now. As far as you're concerned, the only things here are the ReFear and the ReStandalone. Sorry, and the Re-EQ. So open up ReFear. And essentially what you're seeing here is a bit of software that's going to allow us to remove any background noise. What you're going to want to do first is set the edit mode to precise and set the mode to subtract. Now what you're going to want to do when you're ready is just click on this automatically build noise profile and just let it run for a few seconds. Don't say anything, don't do anything, just sit there and breathe as if you're essentially just trying to capture the background noise. Once you're happy, just click on that and you should see it should generate these little red lines. This is essentially the background noise that it's picking up and removing. As you can see on mine, the yellow lines are my voice currently, and the red lines, anything under that, it's essentially removing. Now you can go into this in a more of a custom way, using points flat. And if you find that this is really removing too much of your audio, it's making it sound a little iffy, try going in precise, maybe toning it down a little bit. But generally, I think for most people, the automatically build noise profile should work absolutely fine. Push comes to shove and you can't really get this to work, just ignore this one for now. So now that we've got our noise removal and our EQ set up, the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to add in some gating. Now what gating allows us to do is essentially only have our microphone activate when we're actually talking. We don't want to capture things like ourselves breathing or just random little background noise, clicks of the mouse, things like that. So add the plugin and you want rear gate standalone, and this should be the second item in the chain. So currently you should have ReFear standalone, rear gate, and rear EQ. And rear EQ should be going to your audio out, and your audio in should be going to ReFear. Ignore rear comp for now. So open up rear gate, and you're going to get something looking a little similar to this. For these settings in the envelope section, I would recommend just copying mine. These are what I found to work pretty well. But essentially what we're trying to achieve from this is we want this dial on the left, and we want it to be kind of just above our ambient noise. So I'll let it drop down for a second. So as you can see, it's a decent chunk above my ambient noise, and essentially what it's going to do is anything under that is going to be getting cut off. So you can see when I stop talking, there's still noise there, but you guys aren't hearing it anymore and it's not being output. So just have a little play around with that. You don't want it cutting off your speaking, you just want it to nicely capture your voice, and that's it. So the next thing we're going to be doing is adding some compression. Again, you're going to want to click Add Plugin, and you're going to want to go to Rear Comp Standalone. This should be the last item in the chain. Go ahead and double click it to open it up. Again, in the envelope settings, I would copy mine. This is what I found to work pretty decently. But with compression, rather than with the gating where we wanted it to be below our audio, we want it just above. And the purpose of that is that when we're talking louder than usual, or say we're shouting into the microphone, it's going to bring the audio back down. And I'll give you just a quick example of that. So this is me if I'm shouting into the microphone, and you can see this little red bar appearing, and it's essentially just bringing our audio down when I talk too loudly. Now normally if you shout, it's just going to, it's going to give whatever there is. It's going to go as loud as it can. And people that are watching you on stream probably aren't going to be very happy. With a compressor, it allows you to still shout when you want to, all that good stuff. But it's just going to bring it down and keep your audio nice and uniform. So essentially you just want to have it just above where your normal speaking volume is, so that anything that goes above that is just being brought back down in line. So there's one last little thing that I actually forgot to mention earlier. And you want to go over to Voice Meter, click on Menu, go to System Tray, Run at Startup. That just means the software is going to boot the moment you boot your PC. And the second one is in Mini Host Modular. Once you're done changing all your settings and you've got everything how you like it, go to File, Save Graph As, and make sure you save it somewhere memorable. And then when you boot your PC, all you need to do is open up the software, hover over recent files and it should show it, otherwise open Graph and open wherever you saved it, and voila, your settings are back. So now that you've got that all setting up, your audio is going into Voice Meter, your microphone's going through FL Studio Mini Host Modular and back into Voice Meter with all of your lovely effects running on it. Now essentially, whenever you use a new piece of software, all you're going to want to make sure is that your default audio devices are set to Voice Meter. Just make sure that all these effects are running. And that's essentially all there is to it. Have a little play around with the subtraction, the EQ. If you're having any issues with like bits of audio being clipped, maybe check the gating, and maybe check the compression as well if it's sounding a bit wonky, like it's bringing everything down a little too much. But that's essentially all there is to it. Anyway guys, I do stream live on Twitch Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday from 7 PM GMT onwards over at twitch.tv/BigfeetzGaming. I'll leave a link to that down in the description, so if you are interested in stopping by, come say hello. Maybe this video helped you. But anyway, ciao for now.